Interesting, big point about Boris today. You know, the cost of living crisis. He said we'll have to endure the pain because we're supporting Ukraine and we're prepared to pay this price. Quite a bold thing for a Conservative, albeit leaving, but for a Conservative Prime Minister to say, isn't it?
Absolutely. This is the war in Ukraine. I think most people in Britain think that we should be standing up to Putin and standing by Ukraine. But this wasn't a war that Britons chose to fight. It's not policies they've chosen to go with, and yet they're the ones paying the cost. The government has made the decision on behalf of the British people that the British people are willing to take that cost. Not the government. We're not doing it through them. We're going to put it onto the ordinary people of Britain. And Boris Johnson has decided, without any real kind of consent from the general public, that they're willing to do so.
And it's one. I mean, forget the 2.3 billion we've given Ukraine. It's the cost on businesses and households of these rising prices. I wonder what Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak will do on Ukraine. I guess a similar policy, though I sense the EU policy is changing.
We've seen there are fractures within the EU. Different EU states now have different opinions of what to do. It's interesting, given that energy prices are going up so much, we've seen a lot of talk from Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss about what they'd want to do to help with that. But in terms of the actual broader point about Ukraine, it's virtually been absent from the campaign. You could argue that that's because they're in agreement, but what does that actually mean? We saw Vladimir Zelensky said when this started that he was worried that his friend Boris was going. He was worried about what that would mean. And yet that's a question that seems to have been left fairly unanswered by both of them.
Dan, your newspaper has been quite strongly supportive of the Conservatives and still is supportive of the Conservatives. I sort of put to you, I mean, do you have any idea how much trouble they're in with this cross-channel crisis?
Well, that is, polling shows it's the second most important issue to Conservative voters. And one of the things that we've seen since 2019 is repeated rhetoric about what they're going to do. We saw that once we'd got the withdrawal agreement over the line, that would make a difference.
It hasn't.
It hasn't. We saw that then there's going to be the new plan for immigration published last year. That would make the difference.
It didn't.
It didn't. So now we've got the Rwanda scheme. We're told we'll implement this Rwanda scheme and that will make the difference. As we saw, it's still not happened because we've now got the European Convention of Human Rights, and they're now saying we'll leave that and then it'll all be fine. The danger is...
But they're not really saying we'll leave that, are they? They're kind of saying the British Bill of Rights will deal with it.
They're threatening to... They're saying that they'll introduce the British Bill of Rights, and if necessary, they'll go further. The danger is, though, they're promising an awful lot to their voters who want action on this, and they keep walking up the hill to have to walk them all the way back down again. And all the time, we're getting closer and closer to a general election. And at some point, that's going to catch up with them. The danger is we hit an election... They haven't solved the problem, and all those voters, particularly in the Red Wall, where it's a big issue for them there, we're going, hold on a minute, you promised to sort this out.
And you promised it again and again and again, over-promised and under-delivered. Now, I mean, Dan, I can see that absolutely clear as well. Bizarre, isn't it? Boris Johnson in Kiev, the Deputy Prime Minister at a play park in West Sussex, two leadership contenders going around the country. Is anyone running the country?
Well, let's give Boris Johnson some credit here.
Oh, that's right. He's just been to Greece on holiday, having been in Slovenia a couple of weeks before.
Boris Johnson never wanted to leave office. Let's not forget that. And he said...
But he's still in office.
But he was planning to introduce this great plan for the cost of living that then couldn't be delivered because he can't tie his successor's hands. If he was still in power, all these calls that we're getting from Labour and from some backbench MPs that we need a plan now would have been delivered in July. It was the backbench Tory MPs and Labour who were calling for a general election. If there was an election right now, we wouldn't be having anything put forward.
So we let Boris off, do we?
Well, we need to obviously hold everyone to account, but I think it's fair to say that Boris Johnson could have been doing something right now if it wasn't for the actions of Labour and his backbench MPs.
All right, I won't fight you on that, but I won't fight you on that one in particular. But it does sort of look to me like Theresa May spent her last days in office putting through things like the net zero legislation, which I abhor, but she was busy. He's just been enjoying himself, I think. Final thought. I think we're all getting bored to death with the leadership debate. Hustings after hustings, we're all asking ourselves, why the hell's it taking so long? Have there been any significant shifts in position this week?
To be honest, absolutely not. We've seen, last night Liz Truss said that she was talking about shifting money from the NHS towards social care. That's already kind of in the plans that have been outlined. Rishi Sunak, when he was Chancellor, was talking about doing that. It's been made a big news story today. That's partially because there's so little new elements coming out of these, that any small announcement makes big news.
I tell you what, Dan Falvey, when somebody who works as a deputy political editor for The Express tells you there's no news, there really is no news in terms of anything fresh, and we thank you very much indeed for joining us.